Hi there, friends. Welcome to Tuesday's climate lesson. Today, I did not send out any worksheets for this. There is nothing to print out. Okay, so there's that. But for today's lesson, we are going to go over the timeline for global warming. But we're going to last one's was really general. This time we're going to break it down into dates, okay, and more to decades and what's going on, what things were passed, what was being looked at, and how it kind of evolved and how we learn more about it to this day, right? Okay, so the first date we have is in 1904, okay? And it says that a Swedish scientist was investigating the effects of the double aromatic carbon dioxide which had on global warming. So in short, what was happening in 1904 in Sweden, there was a scientist that was looking at the fact that if we were to double the carbon dioxide in our atmosphere, what that would have on the global warming aspect, okay? So that was happening in 1904 in Sweden. That's when they first started looking at that stuff. And then in 1950, geologists was starting to look at, and they found a way to demonstrate that carbon dioxide levels in the air had increased as a result as fossil fuels. So they were able to come up in the 1950s with a visual showing that just with fossil fuels, it had increased the amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. Okay, so that was in 1950. And then in 1965, there was a government report on global warming. Okay, so in 1965, they started publishing. It was the very first government report on global warming. And this indicated that the environment was having troubles, and it mentioned that potential for global warming caused by carbon dioxide. So they were actually leading to the fact that they knew that carbon dioxide, high levels of it, was a factor and a high contender of why we were having problems with global warming, okay? And that was in 1965. Then we get to 1977, and there was a report published, and it stated that we should feel a sense of urgency. We should not panic, but we should feel a sense of urgency, and we actually need to start worrying about it. So in 1977, there was a lot of cool things happening in the 70s and 60s, especially for global warming. I would love you guys to look into that and actually see what was happening in the 60s and what was happening in the 70s for this particular subject of global warming. You'll find a lot of interesting things. They were really trying to make a change, and so the government was jumping on board, and so that was pretty cool that they put that out there. All right, and then we get to the 1980s. Oh my goodness! So Al Gore was had the first Congress hearing to study the effects of global warming, okay? And so that was really cool because he was actually bringing it to Congress, and they had to actually talk about it. So in the 80s, Al Gore put the ball in motion, okay? And then in 82, an article was published explaining the rise of global sea levels. So in 82, they started looking, they've been looking at sea levels for a long time now, to up to this point, and now they have noticed that the levels are increasing, and they have time to study it enough to realize that has a role that it plays. And it also affects the melting of the glaciers and the ice sheets. So that was interesting, right? Just in 82. And then we have it in 83. Just a year later, the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, released a report explaining the threats of emissions of carbon dioxide, okay? So now, we got the government on track. We got this, we got many countries since the 1904 looking into this subject. And so it's really getting the ball's really, really rolling at this point. And so then we get to 88, okay? Now we have NASA. Now we have NASA able to explain the greenhouse effect and how they can show that by the 1900s, it will eventually impact the people and the climate. So they knew that 1999, and those times after, that what happened since they started tracking it, they knew it was really going to affect the people and the weather, and if we were going to have more droughterages where we shouldn't have droughts, and we were going to have more rainfall where we shouldn't have so much rainfall, right? And, we could say that we do have that, right? We have experienced those things. All right. So we're in 1990. President Bush, he went ahead and signed a law that required the United States to work under the global change, right? And so, and this is also, I don't know if you guys hear me or heard me right, but this is really sad. In 1990, we just finally jumped on board to be a helpful member of the world with the rest of the country. Isn't that sad? It took us to the 90s to finally say, yeah, sure, we'll help with this global warming thing. But, we did. So. And then we have 1992. Over 100 government leaders met to discuss about the change of climate. Okay, so this is kind of cool because this is over 100 government leaders, folks. So this is where a whole bunch of countries come together and work together. So this is actually really exciting. And, this is a huge movement for the whole world to move forward as a whole, right? Because we all live on Earth. We all need to move forward as a whole. And then in 97, the United States passed a law agreeing to reduce emissions by 7%. So they really wanted to look at 2008 to 2012, and they really wanted to reduce the emissions by 7%. And that is huge. That's super exciting that we were jumping on board and that we had set goals as such. That's really exciting, right? So then in 2001, there were reports published globally that the surface temperatures is predicted to increase by 1.4 to 5.8 degrees over a period of, 100 years. Okay. So, and that was because of the activities of the human race, of the people of the world. And we learned in our lesson that just a little bit of degrees really does change so much when it comes to the ecosystem and how the world moves and works. Okay. And so then in 2003, 2 years later, Senator McCain had a proposal to cap greenhouse gases emissions for the utilities and their industries, which is really awesome, which pretty much what this does, it allows companies to only have so many emissions to go out of their business, and they can't just do whatever they want, okay? Because before then, they were just doing whatever they wanted, pumping out whatever they wanted, and so this was putting a cap on it. Okay, obviously with every bill, there's always some things that can be changed and improved, but this was a step forward in what we needed, okay? And so 2004, just 1 year later, Senator McCain again visited, so he was really trying to understand. He visited the Arctic regions, and he saw firsthand the impact of climate in that region, okay? So this guy, he was really trying to put things in motion, really trying to help with the bills and to help the businesses, making sure they're not taking advantage of the world, right? Just because they want to make a quick buck, right? And then a year later decided to do some research on his own and go firsthand to go visit these locations to see how the ice was melting. And he was like, yeah, this is definitely a thing. And if you look and you research that, guys, and you watch the videos, like it is definitely an interesting view and eye-opening, and just really makes you want to just put your best foot forward and do your best, okay? And so then I encourage you guys to go check that out. And then in 2005, there was this guy, a senator that had a speech stating that global warming is nothing more than a hoax. And so in 2005, just a year later, after we're getting things in motion, NASA saying it, the government saying, the EPA saying it, we're all over the world saying, yes, this is a thing. But then in 2005, we still have people saying, no, this is a hoax, right? And so then that also, just in that alone, goes to say, we really need to really challenge ourselves and really make sure that what we're reading and what we're listening to and who we're speaking to, they're really in our best interest and that they really are having the best information forward, right? And so it's really sad that after NASA and the government and the EPA, people can still deny it, right? And that was only up in 2005. We are in 2020. And so this is where your homework comes in. I really do encourage you guys to see what has happened since 2010 and 2020, the last 10 years. What has happened for global warming? What have we done to improve it? What laws have we made? What things have we done naturally to? What things have we planted? What things have we put in place for cities with output and pollution? What things have changed, So yeah, that was the timeline from 1904 to 2005. A lot has happened in that time. And I'm going to also turn around really quick because I also want to show at the beginning of time, not really much was happening. But as time went on, more people were jumping on, more organizations were working together, and it was just growing, which was good because, right, our world needed it. We need to take care of it just as it takes care of us. It's like that beautiful cycle. All right, folks, thank you so much for hopping on. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you Wednesday. Bye for now, folks.